Alright everyone, today we are going to talk about a very interesting question. A question that appears simple at first glance, but once we begin to analyze it carefully, it becomes much more complicated. The question is this: why is invading Iran considered one of the most dangerous military operations in modern geopolitics? Now, most people, when they hear this question, immediately begin thinking about weapons. They think about missiles. They think about nuclear programs. They think about military technology. But the real reason the United States fears an Iran invasion has nothing to do with weapons. In fact, if we analyze the problem from a strategic perspective, the answer lies somewhere much deeper. It lies in geography. It lies in history. And most importantly, it lies in time. Because modern wars are not always won by the side with the strongest military. Sometimes they are lost by the side that misunderstands the battlefield. So today I want to walk you through this problem step by step, and by the end of this discussion, you will see why many military planners consider Iran one of the most difficult countries in the world to invade. Now, the first thing we need to do is zoom out. Whenever we analyze geopolitics, we must begin with the map, because geography is the foundation of strategy. If you look at the Middle East from a global perspective, you will notice something interesting. Most of the region is relatively flat. Countries like Iraq, Kuwait, and parts of Saudi Arabia consist largely of desert plains. This kind of terrain is ideal for modern mechanized warfare. Tanks move quickly. Armored vehicles maneuver easily. Aircraft can strike targets without significant terrain interference, and logistics fuel. Food, equipment can move across the battlefield efficiently. But Iran is different, very different. When you look at Iran on the map, the first thing that stands out is the terrain. Iran is dominated by mountains. Two massive mountain systems define the geography of the country. To the west lies the Zagros Mountains. To the north lies the Alborz Mountains. Together, these ranges create natural barriers that surround the Iranian plateau. And these mountains are not small. They stretch for thousands of kilometers. They create narrow passes, steep valleys, and difficult terrain that makes large-scale military operations extremely challenging. Now, let me explain why this matters. Modern armies rely heavily on logistics. In fact, many military analysts will tell you that wars are not won by tactics alone. They are won by supply chains. Armies need fuel. They need food. They need ammunition. They need spare parts. And all of these resources must travel from the rear of the army to the front lines. This process becomes much more complicated in mountainous terrain. Roads become narrow. Convoys become vulnerable. Aircraft have limited maneuvering space, and suddenly, an army that appears unstoppable on paper becomes much less flexible. Now, history gives us many examples of this. Napoleon learned this lesson in Russia, the United States learned it in Vietnam, and the Soviet Union learned it in Afghanistan. Mountains change the nature of war. They slow armies down, they stretch supply lines, and they give defenders enormous advantages. But mountains are only the first layer of Iran's defense. Beyond the mountains lies the Iranian plateau itself. This plateau forms the central heart of the country, and much of it is covered by desert. Two massive deserts dominate eastern Iran, the Dasht-e-Kavir and the Dasht-e-Lut. These are not ordinary deserts. They are among the harshest environments on Earth. Temperatures in some areas can reach extreme levels. Water sources are scarce. Travel across these regions is difficult even for modern vehicles. For an invading army, deserts create a logistical nightmare. Every soldier requires water, every vehicle requires fuel, and every kilometer traveled increases the strain on supply lines. Now imagine trying to maintain hundreds of thousands of troops across this kind of terrain. The difficulty becomes obvious, but geography alone does not explain why Iran is so difficult to invade. Because modern military technology is designed to overcome geography, at least in theory. Over the past several decades, the United States has developed military strategies that rely on overwhelming technological superiority. These strategies emphasize precision, speed, and coordination. In modern warfare, the United States typically follows a sequence of operations designed to dismantle enemy forces quickly. The first phase usually involves targeting leadership. This is often referred to as decapitation. The goal is to eliminate command structures, destroy communication systems, and prevent the enemy from organizing. An effective response. The second phase involves establishing air superiority. American aircraft dominate the skies. Enemy air defenses are destroyed. Military bases are bombed. Infrastructure is disrupted. Once air superiority is achieved, the enemy's ability to resist begins to collapse. The third phase involves internal pressure, economic sanctions, cyber warfare, and sometimes support for internal opposition groups. The idea is to create both external and internal stress on the enemy government. When all of these pressures combine, the state begins to destabilize. This strategy has been used repeatedly over the past several decades, in Iraq, in Libya, against ISIS. And in many cases, it has worked remarkably well, but Iran presents a unique problem. Because when this strategy is applied to Iran, something unexpected happens. Instead of weakening the country, these tactics might actually strengthen it. Now, to understand why, we must look at Iranian society. Iran is not simply a modern political state. It is the inheritor of an ancient civilization for more than 2,000 years. Persian empires dominated large parts of the Middle East and Central Asia. Even today, this historical memory shapes how many Iranians see themselves. Persian identity is deeply rooted in culture, language, and history. And when outside powers threaten that identity, nationalism tends to intensify. This phenomenon is not unique to Iran. It occurs in many societies. When populations face internal disagreements, external threats often unify them. Political divisions fade, social tensions diminish, and the population begins to rally around the defense of the country. This creates a strategic paradox. A military strategy designed to destabilize a country can sometimes produce the opposite effect. Instead of dividing the population, it unites them. And this leads us to the most important element of the Iran invasion problem. Time. Modern American military doctrine is designed around speed. The idea is to achieve victory quickly. Overwhelming force is applied early in the conflict. The enemy's ability to resist collapses, and the war ends before it becomes politically or economically costly. But Iran does not need to win a fast war. Iran only needs to prevent the war from ending quickly. And this is where guerrilla warfare becomes important. Guerrilla warfare is a strategy used by weaker forces against stronger opponents. Instead of fighting conventional battles, defenders rely on mobility and persistence. Small units operate independently. They hide in mountains, they strike supply lines, they disappear, then they attack again. The goal is not to defeat the invading army in open battle. The goal is to exhaust it. History has shown how effective this strategy can be. During the Vietnam War, the United States fought a technologically superior war, but guerrilla tactics allowed North Vietnamese forces to prolong the conflict. In Afghanistan, both the Soviet Union and the United States experienced similar challenges. Mountainous terrain combined with insurgent tactics can stretch wars for years. Iran's geography makes this type of warfare particularly effective. Mountains provide hiding places, valleys create ambush points, and the sheer size of the country stretches supply lines across enormous distances. Iran is nearly 4 times larger than Iraq. It has a population of more than 80 million people. Its cities are dispersed across a vast landscape, and many of its strategic locations are naturally protected by terrain. All of this creates a strategic dilemma for any invading force. Entering the country might be possible, but controlling it would be extraordinarily difficult. And this is why many military analysts argue that the real danger of an Iran war is not losing battles. The real danger is becoming trapped in a conflict that cannot end quickly. Because once a war extends over years, the dynamics begin to change. Economic costs increase, political support declines, public opinion shifts, and eventually the strategic question becomes much larger. Is the war worth continuing? This is a question that powerful countries have struggled with throughout history. Empires rarely collapse because they lose a single battle. They collapse because they become trapped in long wars that drain their resources. In the case of Iran, geography, identity, and time combine to create a uniquely challenging environment for military intervention. Mountains slow armies, deserts stretch supply lines, national identity strengthens resistance, and guerrilla tactics prolong the conflict. All of these factors interact with one another, and together they produce a strategic reality that many military planners understand very well. Iran is not simply a country with a strong military. It is a country with structural defensive advantages, advantages that cannot easily be eliminated by technology, and this brings us back to the original question. Why does the United States fear an Iran invasion? The answer is surprisingly simple. It has nothing to do with weapons. It has everything to do with the land itself. Because sometimes the most powerful defense a country can possess is not its army. It is the terrain beneath its feet, and in the case of Iran, that terrain has shaped history for thousands of years, and it may continue shaping the future of global power for many years to come.